So you're having trouble choosing a framework. Well, don't worry, you don't actually need to, because using something like Astro, you can actually use multiple frameworks inside of the same application. So let's take a look at how to do that. Alright, so to get started, we're first of all going to need to initialize Astro, and that can be done using npm create astro at latest. We want to install it in local directory, so we'll put a dot here. Then we will need to decide how we want our project to be set up. We're just going to use best practices. Then it asks us if we want to install the dependencies. We're of course going to agree. And then it asks us if we want to initialize a new Git repository. And we also get some TypeScript questions. We're just going to go with relaxed because we're not going to specifically be using TypeScript anyway. Let's just take a look at what it actually created by running npm run dev and taking a look into our browser what Astro did actually create for us. As you can see, we just got a little get started page. One of the big advantages of Astro is that even though this page is written using something that is not pure HTML, so it's some kind of reactive Astro-like language, it is actually compiled down to normal HTML. So you don't have an initial empty load, but everything is already rendered, even if you're using React, which is quite nice. So you don't just get the option to use multiple frameworks, you actually get a performance benefit out of it as well. Now we can just get rid of these imports right here, get rid of the layout, and just replace it by a main tag for now. And also get rid of all of this styling. Astro is quite similar to Svelte in that way. We've got a script tag basically, a main tag and a style tag to allow us to script, markup, and style. And now if we look here, everything is empty and we got our main tag. Everything is fine as it should be. So now let's actually head back to our console and add the stuff we need for our frameworks. Astro actually has a nice tool called Astro Add. And with that, we can just add all the required dependencies and all the required configuration to add different frameworks. So if we run Astro Add React, we can actually automatically do everything we need to allow us to use React components, which is quite nice. And we're also going to do that for Svelte and Vue real quick. Okay, so now that we've added all our required dependencies, let's actually start by creating a new component. So components / react button, because we're going to use buttons to show reactivity and stuff, .jsx. And our React button will just be something I'll copy over here, because you've seen me create buttons all the time, and we're not going to specifically focus on how to use these frameworks, because yeah, that's something you can learn separately, but just how to integrate them into here. So yeah, as you can see, we just create a button with an on-click, a bit of use state magic right here, and a bit of inline styling because I didn't want to create a separate file for this. And now if we just head to our index.astro, we can just import this React button real quick and just integrate it into our app right here. And now if we just head into here, we can see the button is already rendering, but it doesn't work right now. Why is it? Well, by default, Astro tries to ship no JavaScript, none at all. So the button is of course not reactive right now. The way we can do that is by just saying client load, which will basically give us the option to, first of all, render the whole button as HTML so that it's there for the initial render, and then pull all of React and the reactiveness inside of a hydration step later. So now it basically first pulls the HTML and then hydrates it later as an Astro island. And now if we click here, we can see our state is actually increasing whenever we click, which already is kind of nice. So now let's actually move on by creating a little extra component right here. And this one is going to be svelte button.svelte. And then we can just go ahead, paste our Svelte button in here again. As you can see, it's basically the same thing, just with different styling. And then we can head back to our index.astro and import it. Same thing here, we of course need to do client load because our button needs JavaScript to work properly. And now we've got two separate buttons. And now we'll add the last button real quick, which will be Vue. Alright, so I've added the button. As you can see here, we've got a little Vue file as well, with a script tag, a template, and a style. It's also added as client load. And if we now head back here, we can see we've got all of these three buttons and all of them can count up separately. But now something that would be really cool would be if these buttons were able to share state, which of course normally isn't possible between frameworks. You can't even use multiple frameworks in a project normally. So to do that, we're going to use something called nanostores. So nanostores is basically a state management library that supports multiple frameworks. So it supports React with the React extension basically, Vue with a Vue extension, and the normal version already supports Svelte, so we don't need to install anything separately for that. So now let's just run this command, and soon we're going to be able to use our state management. And to do that, we're just going to create a new file, and that global count store will basically do almost nothing. It will just import atom from nanostores and create us a little atom with an initialized value of 0 called global count. And now we can basically use that in all of our buttons, starting with the React button. To do that, we're going to say, okay, const $global count equals use store global count from our global count store. And now we have access to the value of global count and to the object that we need to manipulate our global count. So we just look into our onClick function right here. We can just say, okay, global count dot set dollar global count plus 1. So now we would actually set this global state, but we don't actually see it yet. So the way we're going to do that is we're just going to add a new React component real quick. So React count, it's just going to return a little h1 real quick, and that h1 will return our state. So here again, we're going to say, okay, const global count equals useStore global count. And here we can just render our global count because this is reactive, so it will automatically update our component whenever the global count changes. And if we now just embed this into our index.astro file, oh, I didn't add the word default in here. So export default function React count. We actually didn't import use store for some reason. So the autocomplete kind of failed on me. So we're just going to import use store from nanostores/react, head back to our app. And now we can see whenever I click on this React thingy, the global store increases as well, which is already kind of nice. But now let's integrate it into Svelte and Vue as well, just so our global store is actually global. So Svelte is actually kind of simple. We're just going to go into our script section and import this global count right here. And here we'll just need to say, okay, on click global count dot set global count dot get plus 1. And yeah, that's basically the simple way we can integrate it into Svelte. If we just click on the Svelte button now, you can see our value up here update, which is kind of nice. And now let's just head to the Vue button to do the same thing. So here we'll just do two things. First of all, we'll import global count and use store again and create a global store object basically the same way as in React. And then we can just go into our methods, our onClick method, and say, okay, global count dot set to the value of global count dot value plus 1. And now if we just reload once more, actually reset this to 0 and click on each button, then you can see each button re-renders our app. And now if we just add a little styling, we can already see that our app is looking a lot nicer and our global count is also still working, and you can see it a lot better now as well that our site isn't scrollable anymore. Okay, so this is kind of awesome, but you should of course not use multiple frameworks forever. So how about you check out this video where I'll compare React to Svelte to make it easier for you to decide which one to use.